Hello and welcome to Bespoke Unit. I'm Rafael, and today I'm here with the Seiko Prospex Samurai. More specifically, this is the reference SBDY007. Now, if the watch looks familiar, but that reference is alien to you, is because there's also an international version, this being the made in Japan version. The international version has a reference that is SRPB49. Now, in this video, I'm going to be going over all of the aspects that make this a very desirable watch, and perhaps some of the cons, some of the reasons why this may not be a good fit for you. Anyways, enough chatting, let's get started. And here it is, the Seiko Samurai reference SBDY007. A great looking watch at a first glance. Let me just take a second here to admire it. I love the blue tone on the dial, not only on the dial, but the bezel. There's also a two-tone bezel there. This blue looks kind of dark here because I'm in a room. However, I do have the lights, but in the daylight, the dial lights up. Not only its color, the blue comes alive, so to speak, but the texture, kind of a bit of almost looks like an AP tapisserie texture or a hobnail pattern there. Again, great looking watch. Anyways, getting started on the dimensions. This is, you couldn't already tell, this is a big watch. However, measuring the traditional dimensions doesn't sound like such a big watch. I'm going to measure here what's usually the diameter. And since you generally don't include the crown, although that oversized crown there is probably going to make the width of this watch, at least it looks significantly larger than it actually measures, which is around 43 millimeters or 43.5 millimeters. So it doesn't sound that large. In fact, I've been playing around with some turtles, and the turtle has a 44, it's almost a 45 millimeter case diameter. Nevertheless, the Samurai, with its smaller case diameter, looks like a much bigger watch. And that's mostly because of the large lug-to-lug measurement, which is going to be nearly 48 millimeters, as you can see there. Thickness, it's about average for a Seiko sports watch, which is right at 13 millimeters. And our strap size, if you were interested in changing the bracelet, is going to be 22. Hold on, that doesn't, trying to get it right there perfectly. Yeah, 22 millimeters. Now, obviously, taking a closer look at the case, as I mentioned, it's a large watch, and mostly because of these large kind of protruding lugs, which are, of course, it's a monoblock case, it's just one piece. It does make it extend very large over the wrist. However, since it's such a flat watch, again, it's not very tall. Of course, this being a sports watch, it's not very tall for a sports watch. It wears great. But again, if you have a smaller wrist than mine, I usually like to say that I prefer watches 40 millimeters and less, or below that. I think I could definitely wear this comfortably. It does feel heavy, of course. You do have a large case and a substantial bracelet here, but it wears those dimensions very well, particularly because of these end links. They're stiff, but they do curve down. The entire lug profile curves down, so it certainly molds here around the wrist. Taking a closer look here at the finishes of the case, we can see, again, we do have lug holes, but as far as the finish, it's brushed steel. We do have a bit of a polished component here in between, and polished steel on the bottom. A large crown, as I mentioned earlier, it does have some knurling there on the outside, so it makes it super easy to rotate, and it does screw down into the case, which allows it to have 200 meters of water resistance. Looking closer at the bezel here, we can see it does have a matching texture similar to that seen on the crown. And of course, what that does is it helps you rotate the diver's bezel, which is 120 clicks. So 2 clicks per minute there. And that bezel is going to have an aluminum insert, which has a dark blue tone with a lighter gray. I think it's a very unique bezel color. Naturally, there's also our luminous pip there at the top index, so even in low light conditions, you'd be able to see how much time left is there on your dive. Looking closer at the dial, I mentioned earlier, it's sort of a hobnail pattern, which is really, really attractive. It gets a very beautiful texture. And as I mentioned with the color, it just pops in the daylight. Of course, we have a very detailed minute scale on the minute track here surrounding the entire face of the dial, and that's going to have silver printings for each minute, and even down to quarter-minute printings there. The indices are polished steel. Again, the difference in finish helps the watch to helps the contrast there and makes it super easy, even at different angles with different light, different reflections. The legibility remains. They all have tons of lume in them. You can see even here where it's pretty bright in this room. Of course, I've got the light there. It still shines when I cover it a little bit. And the hands there at center, your traditional samurai hands, those are polished and with tons of lume themselves as well. Now we can see that this has a date function. And I do want to go over quickly, make sure I'm not in that danger zone, but we can see we have a very, very convenient quick set function, which means that it'll take you, mere seconds to change the date on here. Screw that back in. Moving on to the dial, we can see it's a brushed finish. Not the dial, excuse me, the bracelet. We can see it's a brush finish bracelet. It only has a little bit of taper here from the end of the case to the clasp. It does have that same brushed top and polished sides. Our clasp here is a fold over clasp, double button release. I always like to do this test when I'm reviewing them, but you can see I don't have the top component flipped over and I'm not pressing the buttons, and that clasp will not come undone unless you use the double buttons, which is, of course, makes it very secure and it inspires a lot of confidence. Now, powering this watch is a Seiko self-winding 4R35. So it's a very similar movement to what you'd see maybe in a Turtle or in an SKX, where those have day and date complications. This one has only the date. Nevertheless, it's a very reliable movement. Power reserve on that's going to be about 41 millimeters. And the accuracy is about plus 45 to minus 35 seconds per day. So again, very, very reliable movement. One detail as far as this being a made in Japan watch, how can you tell? Aside from the reference, you can see there at the bottom of the dial, made in Japan. And of course, it's going to refer to not only the case, but also the movement. If this were, or at least I've seen in other Seiko sports watches, if it were maybe that the watch was made outside of Japan and it was a movement made in Japan, then the dial would certainly indicate that. As far as advantages and disadvantages, again, I think a huge advantage is the look of the watch. I think it looks great. I think it's a beautiful timepiece. I love it on this bracelet. I don't know, this is such a large watch head. I don't know how well it would pair with a strap. It may feel way too top heavy. I think the bracelet not only looks great, it works beautifully as a package together. Disadvantages, I think it goes without saying that this may be just simply too large for your wrist. I think that's certainly a possibility. It's something that you'll have to try on. I think this watch is affordable enough where you could purchase it, maybe wear it for a couple months, and then simply, see how you like it. And if you don't like it, there's enough, the name carries enough weight out there. You can certainly sell this online, maybe on eBay. There's tons of forums. If you're not already involved in those communities, I think they're a great value. They're super helpful. And again, I'm sure you'll find a willing buyer, and you won't take too big of a haircut from the price that you pay at retail. So certainly a watch worth trying. If you've never had a Samurai, this is definitely one of the ones that could be your first one. There you have it. That's our review of the Seiko Prospex Samurai SBDY007. Now, if that left you with any questions or comments, make sure to leave them below and I'll get to them. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, and subscribe to our channel for more watch reviews and men's lifestyle content. If you're looking for pricing on this piece, I believe it's no longer in production, so check the link in the description and see what you find. Once more, I'm Rafael. This is Bespoke Unit. Thanks for watching.